Hello, and a very warm welcome to the English Story Nook. We are so glad you could join us for another story. Today, we're diving into a story about how a chance meeting in the most unlikely of places can lead to a surprising connection. Get ready to discover a story about two people navigating the challenges of a new city, finding hope, and sharing a moment of understanding when they least expect it. Before we dive in, if you enjoy our stories and want to support what we do, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and consider buying us a coffee on Ko-fi. There's a link in the description below. Every like, subscription, and small contribution helps us keep creating great content for English learners like you. And now to the story, The Queue Where I Met Him Twice. The first time Brigitte Lindholm saw Sophie Doolin, it was under the flickering fluorescent lights of a government building that smelled faintly of despair and stale coffee. She had been in the city for 6 months, and the initial thrill of her new life had been slowly eroded by the relentless bureaucracy of immigration. Each form, each appointment, each queue felt like a test of her endurance. On that particular Tuesday, she was attempting to rectify a mistake on her residency application, a process that seemed designed to be as convoluted as possible. The queue snaked around the sterile room, a silent, sluggish river of people from every corner of the world, their faces etched with a similar mixture of hope and exhaustion. Brigitte clutched her folder of documents, rehearsing the phrases she had meticulously translated the night before. It was in this state of quiet desperation that she noticed him. He was a few places ahead of her, leaning against the wall with an air of resignation. He had dark, wavy hair that fell over his forehead and a sketchbook in his hand in which he was furiously drawing. Every so often, he would let out a sigh that was so perfectly in sync with her own feelings that she almost laughed. When the woman at the counter dismissed him with a curt wave of her hand, citing a missing signature, he didn't argue. He just nodded, his shoulders slumping, and turned to leave. As he passed Brigitte, their eyes met for a fleeting moment. It was a look of shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement of their mutual struggle against the monolithic beast of bureaucracy. He gave her a small, sympathetic smile before disappearing into the crowded hallway. The brief encounter was an ephemeral moment of connection in a day defined by frustration, a tiny spark that warmed her for a second before it was gone. 2 weeks later, Brigitte found herself in another queue, this one infinitely more pleasant. It was for a pop-up cinema event in a park, showing a retrospective of a famous Japanese director. The air was warm, filled with the scent of popcorn and the buzz of excited chatter. She had come alone, a small act of defiance against the loneliness that sometimes crept in at the edges of her new life. As she shuffled forward, she noticed a familiar figure ahead. It was the man from the government office. This time, he wasn't sketching, but was engrossed in a conversation with a friend, his face animated and his laughter carrying on the evening breeze. It felt like a strange twist of fate, a moment of pure serendipity. When his friend went to grab drinks, Brigitte found herself standing next to him. "You again," she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. He turned, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "The Q Warrior," he replied with a grin. "I hope this line is more rewarding than the last one." "It already is," she said, smiling back. His name was Zoti, an artist from a small coastal town who had moved to the city for the same reason she had, to build a new life. They talked for the rest of the time they were in the queue, a conversation that flowed with surprising ease. They discovered a shared love for old films, a mutual disdain for paperwork, and a similar sense of being adrift in a city that was both exhilarating and overwhelming. The serendipity of their meeting was not lost on either of them. Their conversation continued after the film, over cups of coffee at a late-night cafe. Zose spoke about the challenges of being an artist in a new country, the constant hustle to find work, and the precarious nature of his freelance visa. Brigitte, in turn, shared her own story of leaving her home to work for Quick Lentus Fall Connectivity, a sprawling tech company, and the difficulties of navigating a corporate culture that was vastly different from what she was used to. Despite the challenges, they both possessed a remarkable resilience, a quiet determination to not just survive, but to thrive. They started seeing each other regularly after that. Their dates were often simple things, exploring different neighborhoods, visiting art galleries, and trying out new food trucks. They were slowly building a life together, a shared space in the midst of the city's chaos. However, their relationship was not without its difficulties. The integration into a new society was a slow and sometimes painful process. There were moments of misunderstanding, cultural references that went over their heads, and a constant, low-level anxiety about their legal status. Their situation often felt precarious, a house of cards that could be toppled by a single, official-looking envelope. Yet, their shared experience of being outsiders created a powerful bond between them. They found solace in each other's company, a safe harbor from the storms of their immigrant lives. The second act of their story began with a letter. It was from the immigration office, and it informed Zox that his application for a visa extension had been denied. The news was a devastating blow, threatening to bring their shared life to an abrupt end. The letter spoke of his insufficient ties to the community, a cruel irony for someone who had worked so hard to build a life in the city. He even considered seeking asylum, but the grounds were weak. The news cast a long shadow over their relationship. The easy laughter that had once filled their conversations was replaced by a tense silence. The future they had started to imagine together suddenly seemed like an impossible dream. Brigitte watched as Zotze retreated into himself, his sketchbook filling with dark, angry images. She knew that this was a test of their resilience, a challenge that would either break them or make them stronger. She refused to let them be broken. She spent hours researching immigration law, talking to lawyers, and seeking advice from online forums. She discovered a little-known provision for artists of exceptional merit, a long shot, but a shot nonetheless. It would require a mountain of paperwork, letters of recommendation, and a comprehensive portfolio of his work. It was a daunting task, but it was a glimmer of hope in the darkness. The process of integration had been difficult, but it had also made them resourceful. They decided to fight. The decision marked a turning point in their relationship. They were no longer just two people who had met in a queue. They were a team, united against a common enemy. They spent their evenings and weekends compiling the application, a process that was both tedious and strangely intimate. Brigitte helped Zoti write his personal statement, her command of the language complementing his artistic vision. He, in turn, created a stunning portfolio that showcased the depth and breadth of his talent. They reached out to gallery owners, art critics, and former clients, collecting letters of support that spoke of his unique contribution to the city's cultural life. It was a race against time, a desperate attempt to prove his worth to a system that seemed designed to be indifferent. The experience was a stark reminder of the quintessential immigrant struggle, the need to constantly justify one's existence. They even found a lawyer who, after reviewing his case, mentioned that seeking asylum might be a viable, albeit difficult, alternative if the appeal failed. The quintessential feeling of being on the outside looking in was a powerful motivator. The ephemeral nature of his visa status had become a very real threat. The climax of their story did not take place in a dramatic courtroom scene. but in the quiet of their small apartment, with an email notification. Zosie's appeal had been successful. He had been granted a new visa, one that recognized his talent and his contribution to the city. The relief was so overwhelming that they both burst into tears. They had done it. They had faced the beast of bureaucracy and won. Their shared victory was a testament to their love, their resilience, and their unwavering belief in each other. The resolution was not a fairy tale ending, but something far more real and meaningful. Their life together would still have its challenges, but they would face them together, their bond forged in the crucible of their shared struggle. A few months later, they found themselves in another queue, this time at the city hall. It was a short, happy line of people waiting to get married. As they stood there, hand in hand, Brigitte looked at Zosie and smiled. "You know," she said, "I'm starting to like queues." He laughed, a sound that was full of joy and relief. "Only some of them," he replied, leaning in to kiss her. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated happiness, a perfect bookend to the story that had started with a shared look of despair in a government building. Their journey was a testament to the fact that sometimes the most beautiful things in life can be found in the most unexpected of places, even in a queue. That's the end of our story for today. It's a wonderful reminder that connections can be found in the most ordinary moments. What did you think? Have you ever had a positive or memorable experience while waiting in a long line? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, please remember to like the video and don't forget to check out the free PDF in the description for extra practice. Thank you for joining us at the English Story Nook. We hope you feel inspired and a little more confident in your English. Keep learning, stay positive, and we can't wait to see you in our next story. Goodbye for now.